Well, here I am, hanging out in Joplin, Missouri, at the garage of Punisher Le Mans garage. I'm here to give him a hand. I brought the BF good wrench just in case he needs it, but I think he's got things going pretty well and figured out. So let's go see what he's got going on in the garage. It exists. Wow. I actually get to be here and see it. Love that. Look at that. Oh, hello guys. So welcome back to Buff's Garage. You know, like I've said before, when you're working on a task, you need the right tool for the job. And today, we're going to put this away. Instead, we're going to use this. And we're also going to be using our Montgomery Ward arc welder and our 120 MIG flux core welder, because what we're doing today is frame fabrication. Now this poor car has sat for over 30 years in a tree row, and I'm pretty sure at least the back half of it sat in water for most of that time, because from the fender wells, the rear fender wells forward, the frame's solid, there's not a lot of rust, the floor pans are good. A little bit here and there, but for the most part solid. But of course, from the rear fender well back, the frame's Swiss cheese, the entire gas tank, the rear trunk floor pan, all of that's gone. So we've got to fix the frame simply so we don't have it fall off when we do a burnout. And of course, we don't want any flex in the frame, we don't want it to move at all, and we also need some mounting points for our new suspension. So buckle up. We're going to do some welding today. We're out here doing a little bit of scrapping. We want to try to find some metal, and this is just an old place that we've been given permission to come to look for stuff. There's a few old cars and things left, but most everything's pretty much been gone through already. But I know I need some metal for our suspension project, and metal's expensive, and I mean, it just needs to be a certain thickness. So let's see what we can find. So some of the hidey holes, lots of rims. Tires obviously are probably no good, but lots of rims. If you guys are looking for some kind of specialty rim, you let me know. I probably got it out here. I'm sure I can get it out of here. Let me find my button. Lots of mud flaps. Oh, and there was a huge supply of hubcaps out here, and somebody came onto the property and removed them all, unfortunately. This is just carcasses for tires. But there are a lot of rims scattered. So 4-bolt, 5-bolt, 6-bolt, even 8-lug, they're out here. There's some more rims over there. So if you're looking for a particular rim, this would be the place. I might be able to help you out. Well, with wood the way it was over the last couple of years, that's probably a fortune right there. But not a lot of scrap metal. Whoever came out here knew what they were looking for. And there was a huge scrap metal pile out here, and it is all gone. So that's unfortunate. Thieves will be thieving. But still some good stuff out here. So again, if you guys are looking for something, hit me up. Might be able to help you out. It is over 100 degrees outside, and the shop is running 2 ACs and still 87 degrees. So I apologize for the fan noise. But we got some fab work to do. So we're obviously working on this frame, fixing the speed holes, patching up where we need to patch up so we can get this ready to be race worthy. But we're also doing some suspension mods. And one of them is we want to lower the car, but we want it to be adjustable. And what better way than airbags? So our original height on these springs at about 16.5 inches. And our airbag, let's get it to 0 here, is right about 6.5 to the mounting surface. So we've got to make up 10 inches. That's what she said. So we're going to inflate this bag and see how large it gets to determine how big of bracket we need to build, kind of a spacer, because we don't mind it sitting a little lower, but we want to still be able to raise it up, make our turns, go over speed bumps, that kind of thing. So let's see how much we raise this. Hook up our makeshift compressor here. Again. Back down to 0, buddy. So that goes. So fully inflated, that gets us to 10 inches. So we have 3.5 inch travel in this. Now the question is, even at 10 inches, that's a 6.5 inch drop. And most reasonable drops are about 4 inches. So I'm thinking maybe a couple inches of spacer in there. All right, so since this metal costs more than my house payment, we want to make sure we get the most out of it, but we are going to have to trim a little bit off. Those airbags are about, what do we got? They're about 5 inches around at the base. And we have about 4.5 inch from the outer diameter tubing. This was just scrap laying around. But we need to build some plates for it. So if that's 4.5, the airbag's 5, the mounting surface will accommodate around 6. We don't really want to go too much further, but we want to make sure we have room to bolt it down from the bottom and the top. So I'm thinking 5.5 is a pretty good number. And I needed something about 5.5 inches around, and the original spring is about that. So let's see if it'll fit in that space. Seems like it does. You can get a circle around it. All right, that looks like a circle to me. Now this would be where we would pull out our handy plasma cutter that I don't have. So we're gonna do it old school. So hang in there. This. I learned a trick from perpetual projects. If you want two pieces to come out the same, you clamp them together and then form them to the shape you want. So I've got 2 circles, the best I can do, cut out, and we're gonna make them match as close as possible. So here we go. There you have it, matching set. They're roundish, that'll work. Let's go see how we can make them fit into our project. I was looking forward to the cool down today. It says it's supposed to be in the low 80s, and yet with humidity The heat index is well over 90s. It is cooler than 105, but it's still not cooling down. So I'm looking forward to that No Name National September 30th, October 1st weather. It's going to be a lot better. So let's get back to work in the garage. So it's time to break out the Montgomery Ward Powercraft welder. So I haven't arc welded in a few years. But I've got this arc welder gifted to me from somebody who's had it probably longer than I've been alive. It's a Montgomery Ward, if that tells you anything. But we have 220 in the shop now. I may or may not have gotten that hooked up myself, but I've tested it. It is safe. It is done properly. I learned from the best, and I do have some electrical background. But let's see if we can stick two pieces of metal together with some heat. Isn't that what Bear Rose says? Let's get some metal hot. So those aren't the prettiest welds, but I haven't arc welded in almost 30 years. No. I probably learned to arc weld 30 some years ago. But I think the last time I arc welded, let's see, probably 26 years ago. I was actually employed to do it. So it's coming back. I was a construction welder, but it's not pretty. I don't have all my settings just right. Don't have the perfect environment. Didn't make my metal super clean before I started. But we've got time to correct all that. So we're gonna cut this down to the size that we need it, and then we'll correct it on the next one. This isn't gonna fall apart. I got good penetration, which you can see. So let's go ahead and cut this down to the size we need, weld up the other end, and see what we gotta do next. All right, we got our 2-inch mark, 2-inch-ish. This doesn't have to be a perfect science here. It's just gotta be close. I think we're gonna try to use a Sawzall to cut this, just because it'll be a little bit straighter cut. So I'm gonna set everything up to do that. We're gonna cut this down to give us about a 2-inch spacer. And then we're gonna weld our top piece on. And then And we're going to have to drill our holes out to be able to mount this in the vehicle and to get our air lines through. So let's get the saws all set up and get this cut up. Just burning up my blade. You know, a little dip here and there. We're pretty close all the way around. Just need to smooth this out. One down, one go. So as you can see, we have a lot of metal work to do. This frame was pretty much gone in this area, and it's the same on the other side. And what I don't want to do is build up this car and then have a floppy rear end, anything that would cause any kind of structural issues with the car. We're going to be putting a lot more horsepower through it, and while I don't expect it to be like, you know, super launch drag racing style power, I don't want to try to go do a burnout and then have the back half of the car fall off. So it's not going to happen, but we're making sure it's structurally sound. So a lot of this you may or may not see on video, but I'll try to capture what I can. It's just not that exciting. I'm reinforcing or replacing a big majority of this part of the frame and where it ties into the car. That's really the only place where we have major rust besides that trunk floor, which I have the box right here in front of me, and we'll replace that once all this is done. So just hang in there and we'll get this knocked out. Just to give you an idea of what we're replacing, This is the front spring, and it's just so massive. And you saw it earlier when we compared it to the airbag. So what I've done mathematically is take about 4 inches out of total lift on the airbag to, total lift on the airbag plus spacer to that. So it would be like lowering the car 4 inches. That's what we've done. Now, if it's not enough lift, I can add another couple inch spacer, bring the car back up to what it might be originally. But for now, I gave it a 4-inch drop plus airbag, so it'll lay frame. So here's a mock-up of how we've got this thing put in here. I've got it bolted down up here on the top, and then we're going to try to figure out if we need a spacer or not here on the bottom to bolt that in through where the shock would mount, and then we'll have to relocate the shock. We've got some tight clearance right through here, so this will have to be trimmed. I've already trimmed this area, I just need to grind it and smooth it out, but we're going to have to trim this back out so that the airbag doesn't rub and pop. We've got good clearance on this side, but it's tight over here. So once I kind of get all this figured out, exactly how I need it to look, I can replicate it on the other side, see if we need to add any more space in here on the bottom so that we have a good ride height, because obviously I'd like this thing lay in frame when it's parked, but I need it to be able to, you know, go back up high enough that I can still turn the wheels and drive around. So it's coming together. Alright, so we've got this clearance pretty well. I've got it ground down. It's still a little tight in a few spots, but if I go much further, we're going to run out of strength in here. So what I'm going to do is get some fuel line, split it, and RTV it into here to help protect that edge, so that when the two pieces rub, they're just rubber against rubber. I mean, it's tight, but there is space in between there. Plus the bag has no air in it right now. Anyway, we need to be able to hook this here where the old shock used to go. These nuts are welded on, and of course both of them from that side and this side had one snap off and one come out. I just don't care about that because it's not a big deal. We can grind it off, but for now we're leaving it. So this takes a single bolt in the bottom, and I was going to build a plate, but this is Buff's garage, so we like to recycle. So I dug through my scrap bin from taking the rear end apart, and these little pieces came from the rear end and helped mount the rear spring in the back. Well, since there's no rear spring in the back, it looks like this would just about fit in that hole and give us the yep, that'll fit. So I've got the other one cleaned up and painted. I'll show you that, and we'll get this mounted in here and see if we need to add some space in here to give us a little more lift. Otherwise, we're about ready to put this together. Not bad for 50-year-old rusty part. So for those of you that have never worked with an airbag setup on a car, well, join my club. I've seen them. I've worked with airbags before. I've never built a car that had 4-corner airbag suspension. So I kind of know how it works, but this isn't a professional kit that I bought. These are random parts that I bought off eBay or I'm recycling to make into a 4-corner airbag kit. So if it's not like what you see online, or maybe it's not what you think it should be, you're probably right, but that's okay. It's my car and I'm building it the way I want. But that thing is securely mounted in the top and braced. I've got airline. Now this isn't completely sealed, but let's see what it does, adding some air to it. Let the carnage begin. All right, so we've got to play around with the airbag system and kind of see how things are going to fit and where they're going to fit and how they don't fit. And what I've realized is if we really want this system to flatten or pancake or slam to the ground, we don't have enough space here to do that. Basically, it's going to deflate and the wheels are literally going to come off the ground. I don't quite think I want it to slam that low. And then the other issue is if the system fully deflates for whatever reason, your car is now completely immovable. So we're going to take all this apart and add a little bit more spacer in here and bring everything down just a bit. Bring that airbag down to here. And I think we're going to get a better result, a better ride, and hopefully still achieve our goal of making it move up and down the way we want. Let's see what we can do. All right, we finally got this airbag doing what I want it to do. So now we just need to put all this back together so we can put it back on the ground. So I had to take a moment. I've got the airbag where we want it. I've got it mounted the way we want it. I've got it bolted in from the bottom. It's doing the uppy down thing just like I want. But our upper control arm was doing the front and back thing, which we don't want. And what I found was, not only had one of the bushings gone bad, but the other one was completely gone and broken through. And if you look closely, you can see some damage on the actual control arm itself. It's not supposed to be egg-shaped like that. And the corresponding piece that I've cleaned up has a nice little gouge out of it. So I'll be hunting replacements for those in the future. But for now, we're going to throw it back together. I've got brand new control arm bushings. Once again, these are unobtainium, really hard to get. It took me a couple weeks to find them and get them here. But we're going to put those in, put this control arm back together, and we should be able to throw the wheel on this evening. Well, it's the next day. And after wrestling with the upper control arm shaft, I realized that there was no way to make this part work like it was. So as you saw, the bushing in that upper control arm shaft had worn out. And so I did order the new bushings. They took a while to get here. And so I didn't take anything apart while I was waiting. I should have, because it turns out the shaft had some damage to it. Now, I put the new bushings in, I had the shaft put in, everything looked like it was going to go back together until I tried to put the nut back on. And I'll try to get as close as I can, but that's the factory original nut. I'm assuming me taking it off was the first time it ever got taken off. And when I tried to put it back on, it didn't want to thread. So I was able to get one side on, but when I took that nut off, it also stripped out. So I don't know what happened to those nuts. I can tell you I got a replacement nut. It didn't want to thread on there. I didn't want to try to, damage the shaft any more than it was. But at the end of the day, the new nut wouldn't go on this upper control arm shaft. Both of the old ones were completely stripped out, and now I have damaged threads on this shaft. So frustrated, pretty beaten up, I went ahead and just called it a night. I did what any good YouTuber does. I went back to my No Name Nationals community and just enjoyed the night, listening to all the guys talking about cars, talking about movies, talking about music. It was nice and relaxing, and it took the edge off. So now I wake up with a new sense of vigor. So I was able to contact one of the subs of mine. He goes by the YouTube channel Flat Tires and Misfires, and he has an amazing Pontiac that is power stroked. Flat Tires and Misfires. I'll put a link up in the window. He was able to find on his parts car this exact shaft that I need, and he's going to ship it to me. And I can't thank him enough. He's provided a couple of parts for me now, and that's the beauty of YouTube and this car community. So this is going to take a temporary hiatus until I get that part and can put it in. But we're going to jump back on the rear suspension of the car and see what we can get done there. That's hot. Perfect piece to fill in part of that frame. Let's get it in there. So our goal is going to be to fill in this gap. Definitely gone over and above what was needed to fill this. But now we want to get it fitted in there. I don't like that. Yep, just a smidge too big. May just need a Tappy Tap Junior here. Well, it almost did what I wanted. I think we're real close to where we need to be. Guess it's time to tack it in and find out. Time to cut another piece. So for those of you that haven't met the 82 Trans Am, you're about to meet it. So if you haven't met our Trans Am, understand that it is a upcoming project that we've been trying to play with for the last several years, but we never really got serious about it. So since we have a different idea on what's going to go under the Trans Am, we're going to steal some parts that we know work, in other words this rear end, to put in the Grand Prix. And before I hear all the naysayers, this one works, this one doesn't. So we're going to use this one because that one doesn't work. And then later we can fix this one and put it back in here. But for now, we're going to modify the mounting brackets to fit the existing suspension in the car. And you're going to see that on an upcoming episode. So I know this video's been all over the place, trying to navigate all the intricacies of the frame, the suspension, the air ride, and now the rear end. So I apologize. It's been well over 3 weeks of cutting and grinding and welding to get to the point where I felt comfortable enough to start reassembling the suspension. And because of that, that means you guys have been missing out on some content, so I apologize. But there's more to come. This rear end's going in, the airbag system's going in, the engine will hopefully fire soon, and by the time this video comes out, I've got 30 days left until No Name Nationals. So don't think that I'm not feeling the pressure. We still got fuel lines, brake lines, wiring, drive shaft, maybe. We'll see. So in the meantime, thank you guys for subscribing, for liking and commenting, and most of all, for supporting the channel by going to buffsgarage.com and getting you some swag. Get you a t-shirt, a hat, maybe a keychain and sticker. Every purchase goes to help us at Buff's Garage and helps us work on the car. So thank you again for watching Buff's Garage.